Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming to class. Get yourself a mat or something we can kneel on. And I'm going to find my mat right behind me. And we're going to start with the kneeling founder, kind of building off the idea of what we did with Dr. Daniel last time, where he was laying on the ground, doing the groundwork, laying the groundwork for the groundwork, essentially to help us learn anchoring and decompression. These are the two concepts that we really need to learn before we start any hinging motion. So even like bending down to pick something up is a hinging motion. So first we have to understand how to anchor our hips into the sockets, decompress our spine before we can allow for the hinging motions. Otherwise you're starting with step 3. So working on the ground helped because it locked our shoulders down. And now we're going to lock our hips in place by not allowing our knees to go knock-kneed. And we'll watch a little video after this that also builds on that idea of not letting the knees do the job of the hips. So, got your mat, carpet, whatever works. Get barefoot and lay it on the ground here. Maybe a little bit of side view. So the knees a little bit far apart. If knee replacements, this hurts, get a chair, do it on a chair. Just have the feet behind you like this. And I'm going to put most of my weight in my knees, so I can lift both my hips up. If you're kind of falling forward, that's the goal actually. You're doing things right. Same with almost with like the opposite of when we're doing the founder. If you're falling backwards, yeah. So just breathe here for now. Forget about your shoulders. Just think about getting tall, getting that chest up, doing that decompression breathing. Going upwards. So remember we talked about the big vertical breath, sucking in, horizontal breath, and for the love, breathe through your nose in the inhale, exhale through the mouth. Everybody's sick, so in through the nose, out through the mouth. Keep your measuring stick hands going here. Getting tall, lengthening with each breath you're using. This is the anchoring. You're pulling the hips in. So when you breathe, your tailbone pulls downwards and your skull lifts the other directions. That's the anchoring. It's not letting your back do that. A lot of us want to breathe with this extension. Now we're keeping ourselves locked in here. And this is a good position for it because it kind of forces you to do it. So again, not much weight in your toes, most of the weight in the knees, but you're squeezing those hips in. We'll do some more exercises with that. For now, 10 to 20 big breaths, lengthening, expanding. You should feel that rigidity in your rib cage. A lot of stiff spines lately, so this is all related. The more we break apart the mechanical restrictions, the less neurological stress we'll have, the better your immune system will do. A lot of us are, it's not just a mental game, it's you're physically locked in stress mode. That's part of your autonomic nervous system. What we call the sympathetic state. It can be caused by simply how much restriction there is in your spine, how deformed your spine is, and how much dysfunction. So lots of spines very compressed, hips and shoulders not moving as they should. Seeing it every day, worse levels than I have in a long time. So it does work both ways, mentally, physically. We have control over one. Can't always control your feelings, so let's get stronger here. Breathe until you start getting that shake. I can feel that shake, that tremoring in my back, those fatiguing of those breathing muscles, the diaphragm, serratus posterior, serratus posterior superior, and serratus anterior, pulling the shoulder blades wide. And that's another trick, is that we're not doing this with our spine, right? We're sucking in, engaging those hips first as serratus is pulling the shoulders wide. This destroys your spine. Stop doing this. Here's what we want. Lengthening the spine, not extending the spine. Lengthening. Once you're pretty good at that, we're going to go up into what we call the sphere of tension. We did this last time. Still keeping that weight forward. Hands coming right there. I'll back up so you can see. This should feel almost like you're putting two magnets together. Like, they're really tough to get together because your spine wants to cave in and round. No, you got to keep that length, that chest broad. Try playing with that a few times. Wide, what we call the long wing. Exhale, sphere of tension right in front of the chest. Inhale. Let's get 10 of those. If your knees are killing you, move to the chair. Go a little higher every time now. Really feeling all the muscles in the leg. Really feeling like I'm going to fall forward. I'm going to fight that. In a lot of ways, this is a great position for learning, but also it's incredibly hard no matter what. But it keeps you from cheating. All right, good. Let's sink a little deeper into this one. We don't want to shift our weight back too much. Just hold for 3 breaths. Actively keep your feet dorsiflexed in. Good. Next one we're going to do is the hip hugger. Pinky side on the hips. It's going to help you squeeze the ground like you're trying to wrinkle your mat, pushing your hips forward at the same time, pinching the shoulders back. Not where you're using your spine, it's just your shoulder. People have trouble with that idea. Squeezing the elbows, not letting the spine cave in. Good. Inhale. Squeeze the shoulders, push the hips forward, squeeze the ground, everything squeezing, everything adding to length. Relax. Inhale. Inhale, you should always get taller into the nose. Exhale, press, squeeze the ground, squeeze your elbows. I think we did this one last time in a standing position. Same thing, inhale, exhale, squeeze the elbows, squeeze the ground. Get shaky with it, but don't get jiggy with it. Relax. One more. Inhale, lengthen. Tall, big chest, exhale, big breath. Squeezing the ground. Good. In this position, just switch the hands. Thumb against the hip. This is the hip trace. So we're going to inhale, trace along your rib cage, over the pectoral muscle, over the shoulder, behind the head, create the sphere of tension. I'll shrink down so you can see it. Going overhead like that. And that was a lot of curve in my spine. Back up a little bit. We'll do probably 6 of those, okay? Thumb side down, weight in the knees. Get that curve out of your spine, tuck that tailbone a little. Sphere of tension, push it overhead. Same thing, come back down. Really shaky. It's all in that slow progression. Elbows are really high, forces the shoulders down. Sphere of tension. You could try to do this in one big breath, but don't rush it. Let's do 2 more. Whole body shakes going on. Good. 1 more. Elbows are really high. Drive the shoulder blades down. Sphere of tension behind the head. Drive it up, hinge, squeeze the ground. All right, that'll reinforce that anchoring and decompression together using the floor. Let's do 1 more. It's called the platter. think we did this one already, but get that belly in. Measuring stick hands. Bladder is fun, I like it. You're inhaling, palms up towards the ceiling. Hands together, forming a platter out in front of you. Inhale. Get tall. Exhale, drive out. Sweaty, shaky, all from 5 minutes, right? Inhale. 3 more. The tremor will come in time. If this isn't hard, it will become hard the better you get at it. Essentially, you can think about Dr. Daniel slamming away on your spine, and all the weight he has to put into move those restrictions. That's what you're pushing up against. That's what you have to find, push up against. But not only are you breaking up restriction, but you're strengthening those muscles that will hold your spine in that decompressed state. Best thing you can do for your health. It's a tool you'll have that no one else will have. Good. All right. Shake it out, get some water. Let's do some videos. This is off the Core Elements series. We did a couple last time with Dr. Daniel. We'll be continuing right along with what we did already. Make sure you can see me. All right, if you have any question, guys, let me know. Get that a little taller. All right, we'll play this video.
So if you've been following along with this work so far, and you're feeling a little bit uncertain about how you're doing some of the exercises, Bill and I are going to show you how to use some basic household items to help keep you true to form. First, we're going to take a little playground ball, but it doesn't have to be a playground you can squeeze against. You could fold a pillow in half or a cushion or roll up a towel. Whatever it is, you're going to place it between the meaty portion of your calves, below the knee, between
Trying to get rid of that glare for you.
And we're going to work on establishing your
you're going to have to deal with it.
Anchor. So if you've been having trouble feeling the inner thigh engagement by just focusing on your feet, we're going to give you a little prop to help you feel that. So the first thing you're going to do is line up your feet so that the outside edges of your feet are parallel. You want your feet close enough together so you have a little bit of inward pressure on the prop between your legs. Then you're going to anchor your feet. So you're going to lift your toes and really try to plant the ball of your foot under your big toe and the ball of your foot under your pinky toe into the ground. From here, you're going to shift your weight back into your heels, right? And feel the squeeze onto your prop.
Try turning the hallway lights on, the killing knees.
Now let's start our decompression breathing. So thumbs at the base of your ribs, pinkies on your hip bones. We're going to start to breathe.
It's better.
As you take a breath in, you're going to breathe your chest up toward your chin and pull your chin back. You're going to try not to shrink back down. All the while, the weight's in your heels and you're squeezing onto the prop between your legs. You're going to take 3 more big breaths here. Chest up, chin back, elbows wide. Try to slow your breath down so you're breathing in for 3 counts, out for 3 to 5 counts. One more time, chest up, get really broad through your chest. And exhale, support that. Good. Let your arms come down, just shake it out. We're going to continue to use the prop to help you maintain your anchor as you start to hinge. So Bill's going to turn and face the chair. You could use a chair, you could use the countertop right in front of your kitchen sink. Anything where your hands can be up above your hips on a surface that you can pull away from. So you're going to line up your feet again, outside edges of your feet parallel, gentle squeeze on the ball to activate your inner thighs, those anchoring muscles. You're going to take a big decompression breath, breathe your chest up towards your chin, back of the neck stays long. Your hands are resting on the surface in front of you, and you're going to pull your hips away, almost like you're sticking your tail out behind you. Weight's going to stay in your heels, and you're going to make sure you keep your chest pretty high. Don't let your chest drop down. Chest stays right here. You're going to open through the front of your chest and shoulders, and you're going to pull your hips back away from an elevated chest. right? So bring your chest up just a little bit higher, Bill, right there, good. And from here, you're gonna take a couple of deep breaths. You should start to feel tension in your low back and in your hamstrings. While your hips are pulling back, the whole time you're working to elevate your chest and create length through the backside of your body here. Big decompression breaths here, breathing in for 3 counts and out for 3 counts. Really challenge your breathing, slow it down. And after that 3rd breath, you're gonna go ahead and bring your hips forward and come right back up to standing. Stand all the way up. Good. Now from here, we're gonna talk about how to use a prop in a different way. I'm gonna take the ball, and we're just gonna have Bill turn around so that his back is to the chair. Now ideally, you'd wanna use a wall. We don't happen to have a wall here, so we're gonna use this chair. But a wall is a very useful tool to practice hinging into. You're gonna stand about 1 of your foot lengths away from the wall or surface behind you. And you're gonna line up your feet just as you did. Outside edges of the feet parallel, really anchor your feet into the ground. All 3 points of your feet into the ground. And for this exercise, I'm gonna have you put your hands into this short wing position. It's gonna help keep your chest and shoulders nice and open. Hands are by your shoulders, elbows are by your sides. You're gonna take a nice deep breath in, lift your chest, pull your chin back, keep the back of your neck really long. And then from here, you're gonna keep your chest high and start to pull your hips back toward the surface behind you. All the weight is in your heels, and you're really gonna be reaching your hips back, trying to touch the surface behind you. Once you're there, you're gonna hold and take a couple of big deep breaths. Really breathe your chest up. Chest is up as the hips are pulling back. Good. You'll know you're in the right spot when you start to feel your low back and your hamstrings. You're gonna work hard to elevate the chest. Give me 2 more big deep breaths. Working really hard to keep your hips back against the surface and to lift your chest forward and up. After your next deep breath, you're gonna press into your heels and come all the way back up to standing. Lower your arms down and just shake it out. Do these few exercises several times until you really get the hang of anchoring and hinging.
Good, guys. Questions on those? I really like the props. I used a cervical orthosis. You want something small, but the idea is what we just did with the knees, right? That's why we did that. So instead of going knock-kneed, like some people want to turn their hips in, the knees go in. We're pulling at more the adductor region, so it's up from the hip. So the knees have to press out that way. So this is just to keep them from going in. It's not necessarily that you want to be squeezing your knees. It's, yeah, you want to be squeezing your hips. And that's another trouble thing for a lot of people. They want to go knock-kneed, and the hips actually then turn outwards. It furthers the problem, doesn't fix the problem. And you might notice that you shrink. So you broke rule 1, which is always lengthen. And she said low back. If it hurts in your low back, it's joint pain. No, it's not the right area. It shouldn't be down here. The stretch should be more up in the erectors, QL area, all through there. That's where you want to feel that stretch. It should feel uncomfortable but not painful. That's rule number 3. Let's do one more video. I think we got time, and then we'll call it. But leave me with any questions. All right, guys.
Let's work on basic hinging. You can load this basic hip hinge in lots of different ways with an anchor like we've discussed a little bit. But let's practice that anchor. You're going to start with a wide leg founder, making sure the outsides of the feet are parallel. Decompression breathing right away here. 3 or 4 big decompression breaths. Thumbs at the rib cage, pinkies at the pelvis, chin back, chest up, and just work on those breaths. 3 or 4 seconds in, 4 or 5 seconds out, staying tall and long. And after that 3rd or so breath, I want you to hinge those hips back. And as the hips pull back, we're going to let the arms and elbows pull back as the chest opens. This is a basic loaded hip hinge. The posterior chain is absorbing most of the force, and as her arms come forward, she's going to have a basic hip hinge back to counterbalance. Hold that for a few seconds. It's just like a founder. Go ahead and come up out of that. We're going to do the exact same thing a couple more times, adding different leverage points. So on this one, let's really focus heavily on the ball of the big toe, ball of the pinky toe, and the heel, pressing firmly into the ground. And then we'll go once again right into that decompression breathing. As your chin lifts and your chest lifts, I want you to focus even harder on those ball of the big toes, ball of the pinky toes and the heels pressing really almost like they're spreading against the ground. And let's keep that as we hinge the hips back. The hips are going to unlock, pulling back, the knees unlock just a little bit. Then it should feel like the muscles of the inner thigh are engaging a little more than they were the last time. The arms go forward in a counterbalance as the hips pull back, and again, focus really deep on the ball of the big toe, ball of the pinky toe, and the heel gripping the ground. All right, big deep breath into the back of the ribs, expand as big as you can, and then let your arms drop and stand up. We're going to go one more leverage point in this wide leg founder before we go into a woodpecker exercise and practice hinging on one foot. So we've done the ball of the big toe, pinky toe, and heel. Let's put that right into play here, all right? And now we're going to work on this little leverage from the ball of the right big toe across to the left heel, and then the ball of the left big toe across to the right heel. That little X has a center point just below your pubic symphysis. I want you to pull the feet towards that center point as if the hips are doing the work, pulling from as high in the hip joint as possible.
Not the knees, the
hips. Keep that tension as you pull the hips back. Bring the elbows back. Open the chest. Breathe big into the shoulders. Breathe big into the back of the rib cage, almost like you're breathing into your armpits. Take those arms forward and keep that X pulling inwards. As the arms reach forward and the hips reach back, this should be the hardest of the three by far. 5 more seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and relax. Stand up. Okay. Now the fourth example of adding resistance to a hinge is the exact...
I would say the biggest thing that people fail at here is they just kind of let their legs go and drop in. If you're kind of maintaining that anchor, we went over and pretending like you're doing the kneeling position where you're squeezing. Just like you said, you're pulling the big toes towards each other right under your pubic symphysis, and then hinging. That's the anchor, right? If you're trying to understand what the anchor is, that's it. If you let that anchor go, you've turned it into yoga. So keep it pulling in, keep that spine lengthened, anchoring what? Then decompression always, and maintain that before you hinge. Hoping that makes sense. Let's continue.
Same position you were just in with an opposing force, an outward anchor. So we're going to go right back into that wide leg position, making sure that the outsides of the feet are parallel. We're going to make sure that all 3 points of the foot are on the ground with the ball of the big toe, ball of the pinky toe, and the heel. You're going to lift up in a big decompression breath, open the chest, pull the chin back, chest up, bring those hips back, open up the shoulders. This time, as the arms go forward, I want you to press your heels away from each other. It's as if I'm pushing on the outsides of your leg from the ankle and from the hip, and I'm pushing, and you're trying to push out against me. If you're doing it correctly, the IT band, the iliotibial band, just lights up. You feel the glutes really supporting the hip joint. Keep the weight back, keep those feet planted, and keep that outward squeeze. Go ahead and come up from that and relax.
Pull yourself.
You're going to practice those hip hinges a lot. Shake it off.
Now, I know that might sound like you just said the opposite thing. Before we were pulling the big toes in, now we're pushing the heels away. Remember, we're pulling the hips in. The knee is actually going the opposite direction. So it's two converging forces, because we don't want to go knock-kneed. We want to pull the hips in. The knees are pushing out. So combining the two ideas that you just pressed, combining the two ideas you just said is going to help you with that anchoring position. So try both, but eventually it's going to combine both those together to get a strong anchor to allow for more decompression, so you can find that wall of tension earlier without having to drop all the way down and be like, I don't really feel it, doc. You shouldn't be getting this far, right? It should be anchoring tension right here. 10 times harder, not getting as deep. All right, just 2 minutes, 30 seconds. You can do it.
Perfect. Now we're going to go into a woodpecker. We're going to practice hinging on one foot. Right foot forward, left foot
split stance. Right foot forward.
Chest up really big. This is the exact same thing. You're just balancing on one foot. You don't have to balance on a balance beam here. The feet can be a little bit wider as long as your hips are squared up. All right? From here, you're going to lift your chest, pull the chin back, and you're going to take that right hip and hinge it back just a little bit, loading the posterior chain on that right leg. A lot of you are going to notice that as you do that, your knee is going to roll out. You're going to use the outer perimeter, the outside edge of your foot as your balance point on the right foot. I want you to make sure that ball of the big toe is really digging into the ground. If you do it correctly, you'll feel a line of stability all the way up the inside of the leg there. Your weight is almost entirely forward on the front heel. You're going to open up your arms, making sure the elbows remain bent and they're pulling the chest open. On the next exhale, you're going to bring those arms forward, and we're just going to load that posterior chain, making sure the right knee is not rolling out to the outside, making sure the feet and ankles are working hard. Big, deep breath. Let your arms come back. Go ahead and stand up. Let's go right into that left leg. All right. Same thing here. The hips are square. The feet are lined up. They don't have to be on a balance beam. They can be a little wider as long as the hips remain facing forward. Chin back, chest up. A couple big decompression breaths. All right. You'll notice in this one that I'm not having you squeeze your legs together like we did in the founder hinge. On this one, I just want you to really work on that foot position, making sure the front leg, the front foot is absorbing as much of your force as possible, really spreading itself against the ground. Making sure the ball of the big toe, ball of the pinky toe, and heel are the driving forces here. Hinge that left hip back. Open up the arms. Breathe big into the back of the rib cage, expanding the back of the ribs as much as possible. Take those arms forward. And again, as you start challenging yourself more, that knee is going to try to roll out externally. Planting that ball of the big toe helps to remedy that. Keep that knee in just a little bit. Take 2 more big, deep breaths into the back of the ribs. 1 more. All right, let your arms come back. Stand up. Shake.
So in this position, in all these positions, you'll notice that I never get my elbows out fully straight. Same thing as here. This should be tough, but also long wink should feel big stretch in the pec and bicep. Otherwise, you're extending from the spine and it's easy. I don't know if you can see that subtle difference, whereas I lost that engagement. So I'm keeping this here. So that way when I open my arms, it should feel tough. Don't let the hip pelvic structure slide forward. Then you're disengaging that iliopsoas muscle. And you notice the chest will sink and you're extending at the spine. A lot of different little things are breaking down at once. You've lost your anchor, you've lost your decompression to get deeper into a position. Don't rob Peter to pay Paul. You stay lengthened, you keep that tightened. So this should be tough. This should be tough, and that is one way to know that you're right, besides the fact that you're sweating and shaking and it's really tiring. That was it for those 2 videos. It's time for work. Yeah, we'll call it there. I'll look to see if there's any other questions here. Hard to separate the hip muscles from the hips. Hip muscles from the hips. Knees, not hips. Hard to separate the knee muscles from the hips. Oh, yes, it is. Prop is very helpful. Yeah, just right below the knee is where you want it. And just be careful about, going knock-kneed with it. You want, and this takes practice, maybe start with the beginning of the video where we're on our knees, or what we did last time where Dr. Dana was laying on the ground, and that can help you figure out the hip motion versus the knee motion. So we're so used to using the knees for everything, and it leads to a lot of trouble because that knee, it's got about 30 degrees of rotation. It's good at flexing and extending, but it's good at doing this. That's its main job. As far as rotation, that's the hip's job. But a lot of times you'll see the knee and the kneecaps over to one side all the time. Rotation, that tibia, just never actually doing its job, and that has to do with flat surfaces. To grip and grab, like he's talking about, those 3 points of contact, ball of the big toe, ball of the little toe, and the heel, gripping. And I feel that a lot. I always get deep aches in my arches of my feet when I'm doing this stuff. It's not that we're sandwiching the foot like this and rolling out of the outside like you talked about. You want to pull, so all 3 points are grabbing. Don't be just on the outside of the foot in those woodpecker positions or even in the founder positions, but you don't want to be rolling in either. It's just all 3 arches grabbing at once. And sometimes that helps the knees. Once you get that idea down, you get your feet grounded right where they're gripping. The knee is straight, and the knee should be following where the toes are pointing. But we don't want to go too turned in where the knees are doing all the work and the hips aren't. That's why you really want to feel those hip muscles pulling in. And you actually get taller. Every time I pull those hips in, everything gets raised up a little bit. Really think about, okay, my knees are staying there, then I'm pulling the hips in, the feet are gripping, and that's that anchoring and decompression, just working on that. That knee position really helped me with that, but the prop also helps. Any other question, guys? Let me scroll back up here. Nope. I think that's it, Ginger. Thanks for asking a question. Nobody asks questions, so I really appreciate them. Hopefully we'll be starting up classes again soon, but I'll try to do another one of these whenever I work 9 a.m.s again, so I guess Thursday. So we'll see you all again Thursday. We'll hit some more videos, but that's even more foundation training than I do in a day. Usually I'll do like 5 minutes. And that just really sets your morning. Because then like, oh, your hips are working as they should. It sets up proper bending correctly. You won't be using your back. You won't be destroying your knees. You'll be using your hips more. You'll be breathing better. Breathing is such a big thing for the spine, cerebral spinal fluid, all that stuff. Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. This will really help you out. Take care.